Christmas had always been my quiet battlefield. The house glowed with warm lights, gold ornaments, and the illusion of harmony, but beneath it all was the familiar weight pressing against my chest, the unspoken expectation that I would hold everything together and never ask for recognition. I moved through the kitchen like a shadow, stirring gravy, checking the oven, wiping counters that didn't need wiping. No one noticed. They never did. They were already seated, laughing, wine glasses clinking, basking in a comfort I had built brick by brick. For years, I had been the invisible engine of our family. I managed the bills when money was tight. I balanced accounts when businesses expanded. I negotiated contracts, fixed mistakes, smoothed arguments, and absorbed blame like a sponge. When something went wrong, it was my fault. When something succeeded, it was the family's achievement. I told myself that love meant endurance, that loyalty meant silence. That night, I wore a simple dress, nothing flashy, nothing that might draw attention. My sister sat at the head of the table, confident and loud, telling stories that always ended with her as the hero. My mother nodded proudly. My brother laughed along, enjoying the comfort of a life he never had to manage. I placed the last dish on the table and took my seat. That's when my sister turned her gaze toward me. "You know," she said casually, swirling her wine, "some people here forget their place." The air shifted. I felt it before anyone spoke again. She leaned back, eyes sharp, lips curled in a smile that wasn't kind. "You're lucky we've let you stay here all these years." Lucky. The word landed like a slap. I opened my mouth, then closed it. Years of swallowed responses pressed against my throat, but habit told me to stay quiet. To keep the peace. To smile. But she wasn't done. "If you think you're so important," she continued, voice rising just enough for everyone to hear, "go ahead. If you're so brave, just leave." My mother didn't stop her. My brother smirked. "You wouldn't survive a week without us," my sister added. "You need this family more than we need you." Something inside me cracked, not loudly, not dramatically, but completely. I looked around the table. Not one face held concern. Not one voice defended me. Years of sacrifice flashed through my mind, the nights I stayed awake fixing financial messes, the weekends I gave up, the dreams I postponed because family comes first. And in that moment, I understood a painful truth. They didn't see me as family. They saw me as a resource. I stood up slowly. My hands didn't shake. My heart did, but my body obeyed a calm I didn't know I possessed. I reached into my pocket and felt the familiar weight of the house keys, the symbol of everything I managed, protected, and maintained. Without a word, I placed them gently in the center of the Christmas dinner table. The clink was soft, but it echoed louder than any argument ever could. "I hope you're right," I said quietly. Then I turned, picked up my coat, and walked toward the door. No one stopped me. No one followed. The laughter behind me faded as the cold night air wrapped around my skin. As I stepped outside, snow beginning to fall, I felt fear, yes, but also something else. Freedom. And none of them yet realized that with those keys, I had taken their entire world with me. The door closed behind me with a soft click, and for a moment, I just stood there on the porch, my breath turning white in the winter air. The house glowed warmly through the windows, my sister's laughter still visible, my mother reaching for another glass of wine. No one looked toward the door. No one wondered if I was okay. That realization hurt more than the cold biting through my coat. I walked down the steps slowly, as if my legs were learning a new rhythm without the weight of obligation chained to them. Each step felt unreal. I had lived in that house for years, yet the moment I left, it felt like I had never truly belonged there at all. The street was quiet, snow crunching beneath my boots. With every step, memories rose uninvited. Late nights at the dining table, spreadsheets glowing on my laptop while everyone else slept. Phone calls from tenants panicking about leaks, unpaid rents, broken heaters, problems I fixed before sunrise. Bank meetings where I smiled politely while my sister took credit for decisions I had made days earlier. I told myself back then that it didn't matter. That being needed was enough. But being needed without being valued slowly erodes the soul. That first night, I checked into a small, modest hotel near the city center. The room smelled faintly of detergent and old carpet, but it was quiet, peacefully, painfully quiet. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my phone. No messages. No calls. Not even a question asking where I was going. For the first time, doubt crept in. What if she was right? What if I couldn't survive on my own? I lay awake listening to the hum of the heater, my mind racing. Fear whispered that I had made a mistake, that I should go back and apologize, smooth things over like I always did. Habit urged me to rescue them before anything went wrong. But then another memory surfaced, my sister's smirk, her certainty that I was weak. I sat up, heart pounding, and realized something important. They believed I needed them because I had spent years protecting them from the truth, that they needed me far more. Morning came softly. Pale light filtered through thin curtains, and I felt strangely lighter. I brewed bad hotel coffee and watched steam rise from the cup, grounding myself in the moment. I wasn't panicking. I wasn't lost. I was free. I opened my laptop, not to fix anyone else's problems, but to plan my own future. I listed the skills I had built quietly over the years: finance, negotiations, property management, crisis control. I had survived far worse than a cold night and an empty room. As the day went on, my phone finally buzzed. One missed call. I didn't answer. Another came. Then another. I turned the phone face down. Walking away wasn't just about leaving a house. It was about unlearning the belief that my worth depended on how much I sacrificed for people who never protected me in return. That night, as snow continued to fall outside my window, I made a promise to myself. I would never again stay where I had to beg for respect. I would never again shrink so others could feel powerful. And whatever happened next, whether they realized my absence or not, I would face it standing on my own 2 feet. For the first time in my life, I wasn't surviving. I was choosing myself. By the next morning, the silence was gone. My phone vibrated so violently on the nightstand that it startled me awake. For a split second, panic surged through my chest, the old reflex, the instinct to fix whatever crisis was unfolding. I reached for the phone out of habit, then stopped myself. The screen lit up with missed calls, one stacked neatly on top of the other. 8. Then 12. Then 20. All from home. I set the phone down and went to the window. The city was waking up, unaware that an entire world was unraveling behind those glowing numbers. Somewhere, my sister was pacing. My mother was probably wringing her hands. My brother, who never learned how things actually worked, was likely staring at screens he didn't understand. I showered slowly. I dressed carefully. I took my time. When I finally looked again, the number had climbed higher. Messages followed the calls, growing more frantic with each one. Where are the passwords? The bank says the accounts are locked. The supplier won't release inventory. Why isn't the rent transfer going through? I almost laughed, not out of cruelty, but disbelief. For years, they had dismissed my work as small details, yet every detail was a pillar holding their empire upright. Their businesses depended on systems only I understood. Automatic payments I monitored. Legal deadlines I remembered. Relationships I maintained quietly behind the scenes. I had made it look effortless, and now they were discovering how heavy that effort really was. By noon, the calls reached 34. I sat in a cafe near the hotel, sunlight spilling across the table as I sipped tea. Around me, strangers chatted, laughed, lived their lives. I realized how small my family's chaos truly was in the grand scheme of things. For so long, I had believed their emergencies were the center of the universe. They weren't. My phone buzzed again. This time, a voice message slipped through before I silenced it. My sister's voice, sharp, shaken, stripped of its confidence. Stop being dramatic, she snapped, though fear cracked through her tone. Just come back. We need to sort this out. We need you. Not I'm sorry. Not we were wrong. By evening, the number hit 66 missed calls. I stared at the screen, my hand steady, my heart surprisingly calm. This was the moment I had never allowed myself to imagine, the proof that I wasn't invisible, that my absence mattered. And yet, I felt no triumph. Only clarity. Their panic wasn't love. It was dependence. They didn't miss me, they missed what I did for them. I turned off my phone completely and leaned back in my chair, watching the city lights flicker on one by one. For the first time, their crisis wasn't mine to solve. That night, I slept deeply. While they scrambled to hold together a collapsing empire, I rested in the quiet knowledge that I had built something far more important than their businesses. I had built myself. And for the first time, I let them experience the consequences of underestimating the woman they once dared to challenge. Weeks passed, and still I didn't answer a single call. The chaos at home continued, though I followed it only from the safety of distance. News trickled in through mutual acquaintances. The accounts had been frozen, tenants had filed complaints, suppliers refused deliveries, and my sister was publicly embarrassed when a board meeting erupted into chaos because she didn't know the passwords to her own business systems. Their empire, once polished and untouchable, was crumbling, not because anyone wanted revenge, but because it had depended entirely on me. I felt no glee, no cruelty. Only a quiet, undeniable satisfaction, the kind that comes from finally being seen for who you are, even if they had to learn it the hard way. Then one evening, I opened my laptop and composed a single message. It was short, simple, and precise. You told me I wouldn't survive without you. Looks like you were wrong. No insults. No accusations. Just truth. I pressed send, and for the first time in years, I felt unshackled. The act of saying it, without yelling, without begging for acknowledgement, was more powerful than any argument we had ever had at the dinner table. Their silence in response confirmed what I had always known: they didn't understand strength, and they had never understood me. The days that followed were transformative. Freed from their expectations, I rediscovered the woman I had hidden beneath layers of service, sacrifice, and silence. I reconnected with friends who had watched me fade into the background. I traveled to places I had only dreamed of, sometimes alone, sometimes with people who valued me for my mind and heart, not my ability to manage their chaos. I began rebuilding my life on my own terms. Small investments here, freelance consulting there. I applied the skills I had honed for them to craft a future for myself, one that didn't involve sleepless nights, emotional debt, or the constant pressure of invisible labor. Each step was a quiet victory, each success a reminder that my life was my own. And then came the most profound revelation: my revenge wasn't in causing their empire to falter, nor in making them panic or feel powerless. It wasn't in answering their calls late at night, letting them grovel, or demanding apologies. My revenge was living well without them. My revenge was realizing that I didn't need their approval, their recognition, or even their gratitude. My revenge was self-reclamation, quiet, unshakable, unstoppable. One morning, I stood by the window of my new apartment, sunlight spilling across the floorboards. Snow was beginning to fall again, soft and white, reminiscent of that first night I walked out. Only this time I didn't feel fear or doubt. I felt peace. I felt power. I felt freedom. I had been underestimated, dismissed, and even ridiculed. But I had survived. I had thrived. And more importantly, I had chosen myself. Their empire might have collapsed without me, but my world had expanded in ways they could never touch. I had learned the most important lesson of all: the greatest strength a woman can have isn't measured by what she can endure for others, but by how fiercely she can reclaim her own life, her own worth, and her own happiness. And in that truth, I finally smiled, not at them, not in triumph, but in complete, unshakable serenity. I was free. I was whole. I was finally home.